In the summer of 1866, a Union soldier returned to his farm in Kentucky. He had survived the Civil War. He had marched through Tennessee, fought near Nashville, and watched friends die beside him. But the real battle for his life had not happened on a battlefield. It happened in a courtroom. The trial lasted less than 3 hours. By sunset, the court had taken his land, and 3 days later, he vanished. Years afterward, workers digging behind the courthouse made a discovery that forced the town to ask a terrible question. Had justice been served, or had the truth been buried? The town of Mercer Hollow sat in the rolling hills of central Kentucky. In the years after the Civil War, the region was still deeply divided. Union veterans returned home expecting peace. But the war had reshaped land ownership across the South. Many farms had changed hands, some through legal sales, others through something far less honest. Courthouses across Kentucky were flooded with disputes over property. And in small towns like Mercer Hollow, the courts often served the interests of those with power, not those with justice. The man at the center of the story was named Thomas Hale. Before the war, Hale had owned a modest farm just outside town. 30 acres, a small wooden house, a field of corn and tobacco. Nothing wealthy, but enough to support a family. When the Civil War began, Hale enlisted in the Union Army. Like many soldiers, he believed he was fighting to protect the country he called home. For 4 years he was gone, and when he finally returned in 1866, he expected to reclaim the life he had left behind. Instead, he found something shocking. A notice had been posted at the courthouse. The document stated that Hale's farm was under legal dispute. A wealthy landowner named Charles Whitaker claimed the land had been abandoned during the war. Whitaker argued that unpaid taxes and unclear ownership allowed him to claim the property. The case would be decided in court, but the speed of the trial would later raise serious questions. Witnesses later described the hearing as unusually short. The courtroom was filled with local townspeople. Many of them knew Hale personally, but when the proceedings began, the judge refused several witnesses who attempted to speak on Hale's behalf. The judge presiding over the case was Judge Edwin Crowley, a man with deep connections to powerful landowners in the county. Documents supporting Hale's ownership were dismissed as incomplete. Tax records were questioned, and the court accepted Whitaker's claim of abandonment. Within 3 hours, the ruling was delivered. The farm now belonged to Charles Whitaker. Thomas Hale was ordered to leave the property immediately. Neighbors later said Hale was devastated. The farm had belonged to his family for years. Everything he had fought for seemed to vanish in a single afternoon. 3 days later, Hale was last seen walking toward Mercer Hollow. After that, he disappeared. No letter, no witnesses, no explanation. The sheriff recorded the case as a possible relocation, but many people in town did not believe that explanation. For years, the mystery faded into local rumor. Whitaker expanded his land holdings. The courthouse records remained unchanged, but nearly 20 years later, a small accident reopened the story. Workers were digging a new well behind the Mercer Hollow courthouse. As they broke through a layer of soil, one of the laborers struck something solid. At first, they thought it was stone. But when they uncovered the object, they realized it was bone. Human bone. The remains appeared to have been buried decades earlier. Local authorities briefly investigated, but records from that time were vague. Some reports suggested the bones belonged to an unknown traveler. Others claimed the burial may have been accidental. No formal identification was ever recorded. Yet rumors spread quickly through the town. The location of the burial raised disturbing questions. The bones had been found just behind the courthouse, only yards from the place where Thomas Hale had lost his land. No official investigation ever connected the remains to Hale, but the story refused to disappear. Generations later, local historians reviewing Mercer Hollow's archives discovered irregularities in the original trial records. Witness statements were missing. Tax documents appeared incomplete, and several pages from the hearing transcript had been removed entirely. What remained suggested something troubling. The trial may never have been intended to deliver justice, only to deliver land. Across the American South after the Civil War, thousands of land disputes reshaped entire communities. Some were legitimate, but others were driven by power, influence, and corruption. Small farmers returning from war often found themselves fighting battles in courtrooms instead of battlefields. And in many cases, the records that survived only told part of the story. Nearly 160 years later, the mystery still lingers. Was Thomas Hale simply a man who left town after losing everything? Or did something far darker happen after that courtroom ruling? And if those bones behind the courthouse truly belonged to him, who buried the truth beneath Mercer Hollow?